enjoying then exposing himself as a misogynist, a spiteful, insidious, weak, cowardly little man that can only argue with women online. He couldn't go to meet up Carl, who had his own issues. He's so crazy that he actually thought that Carl was my husband Hector. Went around spreading that around with Moon, for weeks. And then wondered why Carl eventually got the hump and called him out and said to him, "You're crazy. I want to meet up with you in the real world." And then Den didn't turn up. But right now, Den's playing a game of let me attack Wendy because it's going to wear off on Jupiter. It won't work, Den. I am somebody that can talk to whoever I like, when I like. Yeah? That includes Wendy. And yeah, they are Jonathan Bowden. I actually agree. I actually agree with you. But I don't like the way that he's attacking Wendy. And I know Wendy can deal with it, but I don't like it. I don't like it. And I couldn't give two shits about his silly phone call. Yeah. As far as I'm concerned, it's all YouTube drama. Get on with it then. So, Babs, hello.
Hiya, how are you? Obviously not good. What's going on, Dibs? I'm a bit late to the party.
I'm fine. I'm going to review him, and it's quite hilarious. So
okay. Can you do me a favour? Can you leave this one up? Because I can't stay for very long. I've got a hospital appointment at 11. So,
is that all you've come up for, to say that you need it up?
No. I just wanted to find out, I mean, Den, honestly, does he not think that maybe, like Wendy's setting his car on fire, that maybe it might have been his neighbours that set his car on fire because, he's a racist and a horrible little prick? I don't know.
I think Den's a crazy cunt. I wouldn't be surprised if the car hasn't even been set on fire. He's still driving, by the way.
Well, how is he driving it then if it's been set on fire?
Well, maybe the insurance has given him a temporary car, or maybe he's just lying.
Yeah, that's more like it. Yeah, but honestly, Wendy's response yesterday, I was in fits of laughter because she got him down to a T.
Well,
that's all he ever does.
But what he's done is he's reviewed her review as if it's actually absolutely 100% truthful, not realising she's actually taken the piss out of him.
Oh, I haven't seen that. Oh, okay, I'll have to have a look at that.
I'm going to review it now.
He's a bit simple then, isn't he? Because if somebody can't tell that Wendy was taking the piss, then he is dimmer than I thought he was.
Both him and Moon are simple.
Oh, God. What's she doing? Sticking her head in everywhere as well. Oh, she just needs to piss off.
Right from early days, Moon was a very nasty bitch. Yeah. And whether I like people or don't like people, I recognise pattern of behaviour.
Yeah.
And she recorded many people's phone calls and many people's text messages.
Yeah.
And then came out to call them names and would pretend that she was the victim all the time.
Including mine. Put some of my conversations with her out there.
She'll never show the full conversations, though.
No, of course she won't. She's just like Ghost. She's just like INAV. They put the little bits out that may try to make them look good, but what they don't realise is that it doesn't make them look good. It makes them look stupid.
But what I don't like is men that go after women.
Yeah.
And what I hate even more than that is weak women. You heard me on my own main channel yesterday with Carla.
Yeah.
And one of the
some of my conversations with her out there.
She'll never show the full conversations, though.
No, of course she won't. She's just like Ghost. She's just like INAV. They put the little bits out that may try to make them look good, but what they don't realise is that it doesn't make them look good. It makes them look stupid.
But
no, of course she won't. She's just like Ghost. She's just like INAV. They put the little bits out that may try to make them look good, but what they don't realise is that it doesn't make them look good. It makes them look stupid.
But what I don't like is men that go after women.
Yeah.
And what I hate even more than that is weak women. You heard me on my own main channel yesterday with Carla.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons that people don't like that Claire is because she gets men to go after other people with children and families.
Yeah.
Then it's no different, but nor is Moon.
No.
Yeah.
No.
And as much as I couldn't care less what happens to Moon or Den, I mean, if his car.
Legal advice, etc. How best supposed to be as you was.
Then, you know, I'll couldn't care less then, and nor could Wendy, to be honest. Yeah. I mean, it's not like I don't have errors of judgment. I'm human, like everybody else. I thought Moon was once a decent person once. Thought she was just a sad, lonely old woman with a border personality disorder. How wrong was I? Hope not hate troll. nasty, vindictive, spiteful cunt who's jealous of other women, yeah, and befriends people to use them as troll shields. So, you know, Wingman's in his side chat saying, if it wasn't Wendy, she would have done the whole street just to make sure she got you. You know, like I said, people can get 2 and 2. But I soon woke up and realised that a lot of people were on here just trolls, down a merry dance. Yeah, shook them off, fucked them off. And that's what you're really crying about, isn't it, then? That you don't get the opportunity to troll like you want to troll. Because you're one of these dirty little insidious people. You're worse than the incels. Shall I tell you why you're worse than the incels? Because you've actually got a wife and children that you're not looking after. Your wife should be embarrassed of you. If my husband sat online, yeah, and wanted to spend every waking hour thinking about some other woman and following her around, and 2 women in particular, I'd have to question what was going on in his head. It's what makes you look weak, then. Very weak. You're not manly. You're not protective. You've even put your family in danger because somebody's come along and set fire to your car. I mean, that's enough to tell us everything about you, then. And didn't you have to move once before because you put them in danger? You don't put your family first, then. You. And your children are not only small, but according to you, they're autistic with special needs. So they're sitting ducks, really, then, aren't they? Leaving your wife at home to deal with these autistic children and all the struggles that autistic children have. And big up for your wife. She must be a very patient lady to be doing all that and still be putting up with you and your bullshit. I bet she regrets the day she met you, though. I bet she sits there sometimes and thinks about how different her life would be and how normal it would be if she'd met a normal man. Somebody that actually wanted to care for her, look after her, protect her and the children, not get themselves caught up in shit that don't mean nothing. Say things online that causes him problems. Where the children, I mean, it must be a trial enough for her daily. With 2 children that she's got to take care of that are vulnerable. Without having to worry about outside threats then. And you've done that to her. No one else. You. I feel sorry for her. I really do, genuinely. She deserves better.
You've got a lot of dark shit behind you, haven't you? And then you've got people involved along the way. Friends of yours, people like Ian Puddick. Some strange goings on, isn't there, around all that. Yeah, we're probably gonna have to revisit a few things, aren't we, Wanda?
Harvey, so Mick brought up that, didn't he? So, I could have had a lot of people come after me over Brian Harvey, but he sent that all right tonight at next door about what he thought it was me. Or what?
Yeah, well, up to now, Wendy, we've hidden behind a fake persona, haven't you? Yeah? But we'll get to where you fucked up, where you tripped over yourself, and where you will become visible. Yeah?
It was me, and the little people being clapped at. One sort of broken arm, and the other sort of broken leg. So it's a serious condition. And my neighbour said, well, thank you for all the information, and I'm going to pass it on to the authorities. And because you can't stay on the internet as a nobody anymore, and they can soon track you down, Dave and Den, You know, we just have to sit back and wait for the authorities to come up. It's all in evidence, right? All in evidence. And as for the video I put up, well, Ben told me to put the video up. I have a recording of that. He told me to put the video up. I said, I got a video of you. He goes, have you? Put it up then. Put it up. It's already up on Roodle. It means, so it won't matter if you put it up. I've got a recording of it.
Yeah. So that bit's true. Wendy's going on about.
Case closed, then. Case closed. You told her to put it up. Buck stops with you. You asked her to put up the evidence. When she said that you're not a nice person, then I don't like you. We all know that you're a troll. You done this. You went outside a mosque and was attacking ordinary Muslim people, which you were. Yeah? Not terrorists. Not people that are fucking going around preaching hate. An ordinary person going to the mosque. Now, people know that I've got strong opinions on Islam, but I'm not going to attack ordinary Muslims. But you did then. Yeah? Some of the horrid Muslims on here that I get into arguments with, people like Ghost, well, that's because they're trolls. That's because they're trolls, and that's because some of their ideals are pretty extreme. But there's plenty of Muslims that I've spoken to in the real world and online I don't have a problem with. But you, then, you went out of your way to get up, get dressed, put on your spastic shoes and your spastic clothes, not have a wash, yeah? Walk outside the house without brushing your teeth with your dirty bob fucking washed hair, leaving your wife to look after the kids while you get in a poxy car with loudspeakers and bells on, yeah? And go down to a mosque to shout hate and abuse, not to protest, to shout hate and abuse at ordinary Muslims. And when Wendy pointed that out to you, and she said that's not a good look, and that doesn't help people that actually want to stand up against what's happening in this country, what did you do? You said, prove it. She said, oh, I will then. I've got the full recording. You said, prove it. So she did. She proved not only that it happened, but there was a backlash and a response to it because of how disgusting your behaviour was. But you haven't learned by that, have you? You're still a malicious, sadistic piece of shit.
Legal advice, etc. How best to put his evidence together, blah, blah, blah. It's fine and dandy.
You know? Because your head don't make sense. It's fractured. You know, you've got neurons firing off in different directions. You actually are a retired fucking... yeah. I'm not even going to do it. I'm not even going to do it. You actually look like a bog brush. And I think you've probably got the intelligence of a bog brush. It's quite sad that you actually think that you can influence anything. Anything at all. Yeah? Because I'll still be a steward. I'll still talk to people. Yeah? I'll still do my show. And that's going to really enrage you even more. That is what the Christmas present will be then. Watching you fail. And by the way, like I said, using Ghost Panel, a roaring lefty, yeah? An absolute psycho nutcase with low retarded fucking genes. That's what your alliance is. Yeah, I would agree. It is a toothbrush to them. He actually looks like a fucking dirty toothbrush, doesn't he? Bog brush.
And I think I'm going to get Dave to promote the live that I do on my channel.
If Dave had any sense, he'd keep himself well away from all this bullshit, because if Dave wants to stand with somebody that's attacking Tommy Robinson stewards, it's not a good look. Females at that. It's not a good look. If Dave's got any sense, he'll keep away from your bullshit then. But if he wants to go down that road, let him do it. So,
get some coverage, Wendy. I'm sure all your other enemies will probably put a little bit out themselves or send a link to it, this, that, and the other. So we'll get quite a bit of coverage. Yeah? Involved.
There you go, it's like I have Brian Harvey, you know, yeah, me and Brian all right now, See Brian Harvey.
No, you know. If you remember, Wendy, you had him on. Brian Hill brought him on. And then everything was fine and dandy. Everyone was accepting his evidence and saying, "Oh, you put yourself across with."
Nobody cares if Brian Harvey gets trolled. That's Brian Harvey's problem. It ain't your problem, then. No one cares. And if Wendy trolled Brian Harvey, so what? There's lots of people that have trolled Brian Harvey. Loads of people. Who gives a shit? Ain't no problem. No one cares.
Really well today, Brian. Blah blah blah. And he was even trying to get him some help in the way of.
And that's why he moved. So you put yourself
Have
with each other. You should enjoy your company with each other while it lasts.
myself stood outside this mosque, which had known hate preachers paid 30 grand to go and preach hate in that mosque, to the point where one of the fucking wonky followers went and killed 22 children and injured quite badly 50 people, and injured life-changing injuries to 50 people and injured another 100. So yeah, and what now on that video window that I put out, I put out it's around an hour, something like that. Does it have anybody's names written on the screen? Does it have anybody's family members or any pictures of anybody put forward on that video? Does it have written stuff across it saying reward given for addresses, pictures of X, Y, or Z going into or out of?
What's your point then? It's not illegal to show someone's picture, and it's not illegal to show somebody's name. That's not docs. And by the way, it's not illegal to show evidence of stuff that you did in the past and the reaction to it when you were given forewarning and you told them to put it up. You gave verbal permission, you absolute arse. So I don't know if this is true, but I have got somebody in the side chat that is somewhat reliable and says that that Muslim guy was his neighbour. He told them on the video, we live on the same street. And that's why he moved. So you put yourself in danger, didn't you then?
And I'm going to find this out whether she does know who Wavy is, because she says, I don't know who he is, but he's somewhat reliable. So that was just an interesting point. Just get one more, and then I've got some other stuff to share.
His families. And now he's saying that it gives him absolute proof of where leader. He never will. Well, I'm not surprised nothing happened. This is why I don't believe he got his car burned.
Who's got this, who's got that, blah blah blah. And you were sent by Danny fucking PC Jones. You were told by Danny fucking Jones that you would need to speak to Eric. Oh, okay, I'll have to get hold of Eric, blah blah blah. All these things are on video, so what you've actually done is try.
This man is so fucking thick. You're on video asking Moon and threatening with Moon that you got phone recordings. You're on video, even this video, saying that you've got a malicious communication that you want to air at Christmas to be malicious towards me. You're the thick cunt. Fucking couldn't make this up. Wavy said none of the people named doxed Eric, it weren't none of them. And Eric ain't asked, absolutely fuck all happened and it never will. Well, I'm not surprised nothing happened. This is why I don't believe he got his car burned. But if he did, it couldn't have happened to a nicer guy.
Dragged Eric back into the mix, and yeah, so thanks for that, Wendy, because it just keeps it more active and it makes it a very easy situation for me to prove beyond a shadow of a doubt where all the shit's come from, and the fact that you are actively working with this wonky cunt, which has had to hide now, hasn't it? It's had to run away, hide like a little shitbag. Don't want to face up to anything he's said and done.
Right, so this is all about his personal grievance with Danny Oates Jones. People that, by the way, were part of his team in the beginning. Yeah. What Dan Terrigan doesn't like to mention to people is that apparently, and I only know this from other people that were in his team, yeah, so-called team, that apparently then had a team of people that he used to do stuff with and investigate with, right? And Danny O'Shones was one of those people. But then when he met Kaylee Enav, who's a roaring lefty nutcase, psychotic bitch, yeah. When he met Kaylee Enav, he dumped all those people and started accusing them of a load of stuff. Even though most of what they were doing, he was seen as like the leader of that group. He was the leader, he was the team leader, and a lot of the stuff they were doing was under his instruction. Mental. Mental. Absolutely mental. This man is. And now he's saying that it gives him absolute proof of where all this stuff was coming from. For who? We all know it came from Mandy Mosley. You ain't doing anyone any favours. You're not helping or assisting anyone. You're just a nuisance, a fucking troll, and an oddbod.
But like I say, playing the long game. Am I in a rush to go and visit fucking Eric that's fucking pretty much fucking disabled or whatever? No, not really. Not when he's got a
No one cares about your argument with Eric. Then no one cares. No one cares about your argument with anybody, to be honest. Because I'll tell you what this is. I'll tell you what's going through this mad nut's head. He's got to find a reason to justify to his wife and make it look like he's being her hero. Because he's fucked up. He's had to move house once, and allegedly he's now had his car set on fire. That's what all this is about. Oh, it's not me, it's them. It's not me, it's them. Yeah? The only reason people hate me is because of other people. I don't do nothing bad. Listen, if your wife is still with you, which I very much doubt, because if she had any sense, she would have fucked off years ago. But if your wife is still with you, she probably knows what an insufferable bastard you are.
lot of funds around him, a business, private savings, etc. He's got a lot of money there, hasn't he? Now, if you remember some time ago, I did say anything that I pull from these wankers, I would just show people this is what I got from him, this is how much I've drained.
So, we've got a Wavy inside chat who says then that you're the one that docs Eddie is okay. So, you trolled Brian Harvey and Eddie is okay as well then. Because Eddie is okay was targeted not long after he spoke to Brian Harvey. So it makes you a troll then of Brian Harvey. And if you did dox Eddie is okay and put his front door out, that makes you someone that wanted to incite violence. And is that the reason why when Cole had enough of you and wanted to call you out because you were following him around and said he'd meet you up in Manchester where you didn't turn up and all the evidence is on Cole Holmes's wall, is that the reason that you sent a picture of Eddie is okay, yeah, and a picture of you half naked, you know, stripped down to your waist, showing all your flabby tits, and a close-up of one of your boobs, which was very weird, to Cole Holmes in the middle of the night? Is that why you did that? Was that meant to have been threatening? Was it? Because we do know that you also went round Sean's house outside, which of course Wendy also knows, which was an autistic man's house. And Wendy knows that as well. You see, then the evidence of you being a prolific troll and a bully and an emotional wreck and a pussy hole and a coward because you only pick on vulnerable people and women It's all out there.
From, I'll be giving that money to a worthy charity, Autism Speaks. Now, I will fulfill that. And again, thanks for making that situation active again. Because at the end of the day, Wendy, that wasn't your video, was it? You just decided to put out after the law changed. Yeah. Eric made that video, so you've literally.
But you can't do nothing to Eric because Eric made the video when the law wasn't standing. Yeah. And you asked her and gave her permission to put it out. So what are we doing here then? You ain't got a leg to stand on. Sorry, you haven't. You might think you have, but you haven't. In the court of law, people are going to run rings around you. And I don't think there'd be many people giving you a character reference, apart from the 6 people who like your videos. And I would suggest that 3 of them are your alt accounts. I mean, we do know that you were Josh Bible, Rude Awakening, Den Kerrigan, Jon Snow. So that's 4 accounts already. Who are the other 2? Your wife? And 1 other person? Did that.
Just tied yourself to him legally and put yourself and him in a predicament. Now, all the money in the world or whatever, no solicitor, no barrister will get you out of that situation. It is that simple.
You see Victoria going on because she's a crackpot, sad to say, with her own issues. He dumped her, left her to the trolls, threw her to the trolls. Just get living honest. I've never met someone who's worse than an arsehole. You know, and you can't believe a word what Dan comes out with because he does cut and shut videos, fake narratives, and he gets other people, other trolls that are very technical to make these videos as well. But, you know, if you want to believe what Dan Kerrigan wants to put out there, believe it. You know, but I don't know how much more we need to prove he's a liar. Meanwhile, I'm still living in the same address that was put out fucking 7 years ago, and is consistently put out. And Derek Kerrigan has not shown up once, even though we've said that we're quite able to meet him. If he wants to turn up, we'll meet him. You know, he's just a troll online. He's not going to do nothing to Wendy Wu. I'm quite confident that this time next year, Wendy Wu will still be online. The kit sponsor on the video is shown as proof he was there as last year's kit sponsor. Oh, for fuck's sake. It just gets worse, Carl. It just gets worse. You know? He's so fucking dim. Yeah, he is. He really is. He really, really is. And he's not a nice person. You know, look what he did to Kaylee Engav. Don't get me wrong, I've got my issues with the woman, but he actually sent her over the tipping edge and then wanted to blame everyone else. He pretended to be her friend to use her because he thought that because she was a woman, she was going to use her worldly ways to get into the Tommy movement and cause devastation. And when she didn't get very far with what was going on, because she's a crackpot, sad to say, with her own issues, he dumped her. Left her to the trolls, threw her to the trolls. Eddie is okay with set up with child porn, let that sink in, Jutes. Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's interesting, isn't it? Because we all know what happened in my Discord. And we all know I weren't there. You've all heard the recordings that prove I weren't there. Yeah, that is why he's not around no more, all wise. And do you know what? I think he was a pretty decent guy, and I do think it was a set-up. And I don't, but other people say no, but I don't know. I didn't know him that well, but from videos I've seen of him, he come across all right.
You don't care, Jupiter. You don't care, Michaela. Oniobosa, 7 Joan Crescent, Eltham. You don't have the right to have an opinion, to even have a view, to reflect on anything, observe. Yeah, just I end your recording here. It's just to remind myself of what you did here and to make sure I got it all noted for reference purposes, where to go for the evidence when the time occurs. Because there's obviously a lot to go through with you, isn't there, Michaela Oniobosa, known as Jupiter affiliated, or dupes. So there's so much. Where do I start? There's this thing I'm going to play, which is, so it seems like I can play this one for all the way through because it's on loads of different channels. So it seems to be a open source one, which says 2 hours. So I won't play that one straight away, but I was noted to it by John Wedger. Has his issues, we all know, though. He really does bring forward some very good information. He's very, very worldly, aware of a lot of things. Just obviously got that policeman conditioning, certainly ego, and his own fears as well. Heavy fears. Obviously, it's just, I can't comprehend what it'd be like to be in that scenario when you have that position of, experience that people will listen to you. What the extra pressure that brings from these paedophiles. We're under enough in the position we are, from the stance and the angle we've come at it from these paedophiles and this abuse cult and this gang and this. She actually, Corrine, so this is my so let me just show you. Let's start with the shorts on this one. So this is the one I got it off of.
There's a guy who I've mentioned before called Peter Hyatt, and he's a statement analyst, forensic statement analyst. So he breaks down the spoken word into the written word, and then he analyzes it for dishonesty, and he's 99.6% accurate. And he does a brilliant summation of the McCanns, and his opinion is the mother and father are involved in the kid's murder, and there's no point looking anywhere else. They killed her. So adamant was he wrote a book. They tried to sue him, couldn't, and he went and wrote another book. They tried to sue him and couldn't, and he picks up on the fact that Jerry McCann shows signs of paedophilia. If anyone ever wants to watch this, it's called Embedded Confessions, and I'll guarantee you it's 2 hours of the best forensic investigative journalism or whatever you'll ever come across. There's a guy, funny enough, I did know someone that was on it. And I can remember she told me, she said, when because she was out in Portugal, and she said, John, the mum killed her. The mum killed her, that gave her tablets. Mm. So that came from someone who worked in there. And she said, and the Portuguese police knew it.
Why would she give her drugs? Just to knock her out?
Yeah. She's an anaesthetist, you see. Her and her husband are anaesthetists.
Right.
I was told, again, opinion, I was told it, so I'm just relaying it third party, that they were swingers. And this Tapper 6 lot were all into wife swapping and things like that.
Well, do you reckon they were passing Maddie around, though?
It maybe. Mm. I mean, David Blunkett got involved. The Pope got involved. Mm. Allegations of these Podesta brothers from America
I've heard about they were involved as well. Yeah.
All this weird, and then, again, they were putting it on normal people, saying it was this German guy, then it was this guy. There's a guy. She was a street prostitute, and she was recruited into it with the lure of free heroin, simple as that, and told, look, you'll get more if you turn up at this place. And she turned up, and she watched the baby being sacrificed, and the blood was given out. She drank it, and she said the moment she drank the blood, she becomes psychic straight away.
Oh God.
Yeah. And she said she never ever, it's in her book, and she never ever needed to be called to tell where to turn up at another ritual. She just knew where to go. And she actually took part in the sacrifice of a child. She told the police. She's been to the police, told them. There's another lady I know who's a therapist, and she said she's killed 6 children.
by stabbing them.
Yeah, they killed them in the ritual.
Stabbing
yeah.
it. They use the other children to stab. She's told the police. She's told the police as well. I've spoken to about 10 people who've killed children.
What? And then they all drink the blood of the
They
babies.
drink the blood. Yeah, yeah.
This is like vampire movie stuff, isn't it? It's probably where they get the idea from.
One woman said that the ritual was set out. She was a street prostitute and she was recruited into it with the lure of free heroin. Simple as that. And told, look, you'll get more if you turn up at this place. And she turned.
Jill Dando's an example of someone that was getting near the truth, I think.
Yeah, I think she made a comment about Cliff Richard as well. And my memory serves me well. I think she made a comment saying he's not the Christian man everyone thinks he is.
That's not enough to get a bullet in the head, though, is it? Do you think?
It depends on how right she was. You know, and how. I mean, bear in mind. I mean, you look, Cliff Richard links to the Cray twins.
Did he?
Yeah. I've heard things about that guy, and again, I can't share it because he sued in the past, and he may well sue again. And considering the coverage you're getting now, I don't think that would be the poignant thing to say. His real name is Harry Webb. Maybe in the archives of crime, there might be a Harry Webb with the same date of birth as him that might have convictions.
And we had a right horrible.
Every single.
Look at the state of my local bookstore.
Oh my God. Slugs. Oh my. Is that a new?
The maps, or want to jump on the bandwagon? Light pink, relating to the infant level of the children. So when I'm seeing these colors implemented in this kind,
so ULES,
typical
central heterochromia. There's a different color around the pupil than the rest of the iris in the eye, and the Nazis were experimenting on gypsies who had this eye coloration because the Nazis were absolutely obsessed with the occult. It's often called hazel eyes. It's not hazel eyes. Look up central heterochromia. There's another version too called full heterochromia, where each eye is a different color. And partial heterochromia or segmented, where you have just a slash in the iris or whatever. And if there's Rh negative blood in the family, most likely part of a satanic line, and people with central heterochromia have otherworldly abilities, that they're psychic, they can commune with God, they can see the future, the telekinetic, which is another thing. I mean, the Nazis were absolutely obsessed with telekinesis, the moving of objects with the mind.
Yeah.
So they're just fascinated with what are the absolute boundaries of what a human can do. Central heterochromia.
They are planning to extinct 90% of the population. They try to kill me, they try to bribe me. Most of them are involved in sacrifices with children. You have no idea how many names I have. Top people. And most of them premiers of countries.
Our premiers is Prime Minister, they call it in she's from Belgium. This Kaylee was my teacher in the this is Korean Hoots about when I did that part 1 of the 10-part module 1 of the Victim and Criminal Profiling Academy. Time to talk about it.com, I think it is, .org. Time to talk about it is the www.time2talkabout.it. So working with victims to profile abusers and working with abusers, and she said to have 100% non-relapse rate from. She believes that paedophiles can be totally, and I'll just play a bit more. I'll play some of the interview actually now while I'm just mentioning it. She says she doesn't. She says she's overly. She wasn't vegan yet at the time. She wasn't particularly grounded. She did have her own chickens in her own garden in Belgium. Thanks, darling. And but yeah, I mean, she's smoking TaylorMades for starters. I can't stand TaylorMade cigarettes. They're just but mostly because they test on animals. Then you see them in the end of the tobacco industry. I don't know if they still do, but the way they've tested on animals with dogs, they put like a face mask on them. It's like TaylorMade's always just trigger me with that. But and they're obviously just funding that industry, and obviously they're not additive free unless they're the TaylorMade, the native spirit ones. They do Native American spirit TaylorMades, and I pray they don't test on animals. But or the Pueblo, I think is another brand that might do some. But yeah, and she also, I told you about there's that woman that was working with her, and she seemed to have had her right hand woman who was actually seemingly had some very nefarious shit going on. So yeah, so she's clearly but yeah, she said the 100% non-relapse rate, and that seems like a long shot. Sorry, not necessarily. Just to boldly claim it, when I play a bit of the interview, actually, I don't know if John Cooper is. It was actually really amazing how this channel came up. It came up regarding it was showing a thing about Simon Cowell just randomly, and I don't think I was even subscribed to the channel. And then next thing I see she's done an interview on there, and it came up because I was searching for her separately due to Heidi Rose that I sent you that screenshot. I was watching the podcast that we might go on Podbean on the lady that did this course with me that's also taught me Reiki as well, Beverly. We might do that we will do it at some point, but obviously when all these things are in the order of when these things happen, as it will play itself out. But no, what was I saying? So yeah, so you just get a feel that she traveled to America, like, she was really a top. She was known as really the top profiler. She was she's worked with thousands of criminals. She explained how once she's in a prison and this paedophile, like she obviously always try and get information from them to sort out crimes and stuff. And she said this paedophile grabbed her hand and like they tried to. She just had to keep her straight face, or as best as possible to try and not let them. There's just so many things she taught. I can't remember loads of it, but we'll have to do it all again, and I probably have to go through. Probably actually do the course because it really is a good one, and she's explaining how to kind of break down their need for power, their want for control, and so this paedophile just sort of grabbed her hand. I can't remember what the rest of the story was, but she just sitting opposite on a table. Do you know what I mean? And the hands on the table, and the paedophile just trying to intimidate her, grabbing her hand, but she just kind of kept a straight face and just like I can't remember how she worded it, but just said about addressing the paedophile like in a matter of fact way, anyway, and just carried on with the conversation. Do you know what I mean? And just but yeah, I just there was one. It was the one I sent you about the Dorothy. Actually, the Wizard of Oz thing was above this one.
What word? Yes.
Oh, this one is amazing. And so look at the words that are on the board to choose, whether this is demonic activity that selected these, or this has been all the people involved here, including the teacher, or the teacher somehow, either whatever reason the words were chosen and the teacher didn't know, but seemingly if it was set up, the teacher would know. But it could just be a demonic interference thing. So look at the words that were showing on the wall, and bear in mind the word kite. Obviously, kites fly. But obviously, kite, K, well, not obviously, but I say kite, K, the 11th letter, I, the 9th letter. And look at this, kite. Interestingly, then 20, T is 20, and then E5, so 25, which could be that now this is when it's going to come out. So, interesting.
Boys and girls, sound this word out. Get ready. Steel. What word? Steel. Yes, steel. Read these words the fast way. Get ready. Play. Yes, playing. Get ready. Must. Yes, must. Let's read these words the fast way without making a mistake. Get ready. Kite. Yes, kite. Get ready. Kick. Yes, hit. Get ready. Steal. Yes, steal. Get ready. Play. Yes, play. Get ready. Must. Yes, must.
They rub it. They love to rub it in our faces, John.
I forgot it had plane as well as kite. I was thinking kite was instead of plane. Quite. This is just bad, isn't it? We'll have to listen to that one again.
What word? Hit. Yes, hit. Boys and girls, sound this word out. Get ready. Steal. What word? Steal. Yes, steal. Read these words the fast way. Get ready. Play. Yes, playing. Get ready. Must. Yes, must. Let's read these words the fast way without making a mistake. Get ready. Kite. Yes, kite. Get ready. Kick. Yes, hit. Get ready. Steal. Yes, steal. Get ready. Play. Yes, play. Get ready. Must. Yes, must.
They rub it. They love to rub it in our faces, John.
What word?
In the movie, Dorothy Gale, she's taken to a psych ward. She's strapped onto a bed. She's wheeled into a room. She's just about to go through the electric shock treatment, and there's a power cut. And I think that's a little bit misleading. I think where it's implied that she did go through that, and then from that electric shock treatment, she then goes on this adventure, and that's actually referring to that disassociation. We can conclude that because she sees the head nurse as Mombi, the evil witch. She sees the male nurses who wheeled her in as the Wheelers. She sees Dr. Worley, who invented the electric shock treatment, as the King Gnome. She even meets TikTok, and this is actually referring to the electric shock machine itself, because you see that with certain things such as the turning of the key of TikTok, which is referring to the turning of the key of the electric shock device. She also meets someone called Ozma, who's a girl of a similar age, and she's actually the one that sort of rescues her at the beginning of the movie. But I think that this is actually referring to her alter that's created. And this is something that a lot of the survivors have spoken about, disassociating and creating these different personas, these alters, after being put through this electric shock trauma.
You'd be taken under the park, you'd be put through this programming, and then you'd be hit with a taser. That's one of the common ways of compartmentalizing your memory, is a handheld taser.
Later on, as I got older and it got a bit stronger in constitution, as they were doing that sort of testing, there'd be a cattle prod to the elbow, but it's to put you back into the alter state or dissociate.
In the movie,
simplicity, I think. People are looking so far away to find an explanation. It is not, it is simple. I ask these children then, what does your mother do for a job? What does your father do for a job? And then it's a postman, and the mother is, well, she stays at home to raise the children. And then I look at these children's clothes and I think, what? What do they pay for this? Or what are your interests? Oh, I have my horse, and you know, and it's just not fitting. It's not possible that these people are able to live in a huge villa, being a postman and a mother at home, you know. And I have many of them. One I asked at a certain point, she's still in the network, she's in her 30s now. I asked her, she said, oh, my parents are building another villa in the most expensive part of Belgium. Her mother was a hairdresser who stayed home with her daughter, let's call her Rita, and the father was a mechanic in a construction company, red flag construction company, immediately. Anneke Lucas is talking about Van den Boeynans in her interviews. Van den Boeynans was heavily involved in construction in, for instance, Brussels, where he wiped out a complete area, the North Station, to build World Trade Centers. At that time, his best friend was Charlie de Pauw, who was the construction man, and Van den Boeynans was the Minister of Defense in Belgium. And he brought in the system of the CIA of networks. Ballet Rose, Ballet Bleu, Blue Ballet is a little boys, Rose, Pink. Pink Ballet is for the little girls. He brought this in to compromise high-placed people. So, but you have to dig deep, and you have to go far, and you have to be old. old enough to understand. Oh yeah, Van den Boeynans, yeah, whoa, and he was a very charismatic politician and all that. He brought that system in, and that's for sure.
Yeah, you mentioned earlier about this needs to be brought back down to, you know, mentioned just like everyday families. This is going on that level, and it has been for forever, right? But you're mentioning that this was actually brought in as a more of a controlled network within Belgium, as an example, and that happened around the time of, yeah, his name was Van Boeynans, wasn't he? He was the president.
And it was in the 80s.
Yes.
And
Annika
then
told me
they
about this a little
started
bit.
to destabilize Belgium with attacks, the Bende of Nijvel, where we were shot. I'm talking about 1983. When I went to the supermarket, there were snipers on the roof to protect us. Belgium, Brussels, and around Brussels, the capital of Europe. Because this gang came in, just shoot everybody who was around. There were 29 people killed in several supermarkets. And it was not for money. They took some money, but it was just destabilize the entire system. So it was a psyop to start with, but nevertheless, children were killed, whole entire families have been shot. And that was under the supervision of Van den Boeynans. He was then in contact with the CIA.
Was Belgium a particularly, was it notorious for this, or is this? I'm guessing it goes on in every city, or was Belgium one of the first? Was that like a major point?
Yeah, and the result was people were screaming, more blue in the streets, more police to protect us. Well, look at where we are now. In Belgium, I don't know, you're from the UK, I guess, it must be the same. There are cameras everywhere. And then it looks as if we asked for this. No, we didn't. They first create a problem and then they'll solve it. And you asked for it. You asked for more police in the streets. Yeah. Well, it was meant to catch the bad ones, not to catch us and take our money. So all this is planned. It's sickening that it's planned, but also the capture of children. And, you know, I had a client, and I'm talking about must be 30 years ago, and he came in because he had a depression. So often that's the camouflage to say I've been abused. In this case, it wasn't like that, but I thought, okay, probably he has been abused. It's a man, difficult to talk about rape, being raped especially. And but while talking to him, he worked for Siemens. Siemens is all electro material, like a shaker, a mixer, tools to work in the kitchen with. See, and after 2-3 sessions, he started to tell me why he was so depressed. So it takes time to get to the truth. And he said, well, I work for Siemens and I had to make little cameras to hide in 2 rooms, like in a flower. I'm talking about 30 years ago, So they had these little cameras we all have in our computers now. They had that. And they used it. They put plants in a room where then a victim comes in, is brought in, and then the rich man can abuse the child. And everything is filmed. It was even in the eyes of birds on paintings. So small, nobody could see. Yeah, and they could film everything, what the famous person or the politician or whatever they wanted, whoever they wanted to compromise, they didn't know. But they were filmed while raping a child of 3 years, 5 years, whatever. They were filmed already more than 30 years ago, must be 40 years ago.
Well, so you spoke to the person that would set the rooms up and get like the camera plants everywhere.
Yeah, and he was sick of it but he thought that it was to film sex with a prostitute and blackmail them. But he found out it was with children. And in the meantime, our societies have so evolved that, okay, well, before, when you were a politician and you cheated on your wife, you lost your post. But that, okay, we don't care anymore. You do what you want in your private life. Then later on, it was when they were in orgies with adults. And even that taboo has been dropped. Politicians that were homosexual, they had to hide it because otherwise they would lose their status and their job. Now, the only taboo still left, and it will never, ever be accepted by the people, is child sex abuse, rape. Why? Because it is genetically implanted in people that this will not be allowed. People will never accept this. You don't touch children. And there has been studies long ago in tribes in Central America somewhere, or no, South America, and in New Guinea. I don't know how you say it in English. New Guinea.
Wait, oh, New Guinea.
New Guinea.
New Guinea, yeah, okay, yeah.
They examined tribes, and they found out that when somebody touches a child, immediately that person is put out of the tribe.
Yeah.
And they had to survive alone in the jungle, which is awfully difficult. But after a time, and these are the older and wise people that decided this, they are allowed to come back. They are not stigmatized, but they are supervised. So they can fit into the community again. But, we are so far away from all this. But even in tribes that, they make fire with 2 stones, you don't touch a child. You don't do it.
Yeah.
And now this here is the only taboo left, to blackmail somebody. That's why it's especially focused on children.
And how do they even get into it? Because are they forced to rape a child, or do they want to? Like, who? Because how could you blackmail someone that obviously doesn't want to do a heinous act like that? I mean,
that happened in the 2 case with Regina Louf X1, who first came out about the networks and involvement of very high-placed people. Regina Louf. That's why it's so important to work with both parties in the crime. There is the victim, and the victim is chosen, and there is the offender, and he chooses. So the one is a passive actor in the crime, and the other one is an active partner in the crime.
I will come back to this. Are you there, Kaylee? Just to let you, just to see whether you're listening for this thing I wanted to show you on the mushrooms. If you, but I will play something else. If not, I'll start that other thing and then play it later. It is. Oh, amazing. It's just the audio thing. So it's just like maybe 5 minutes of this, these 2. Hopefully this one won't strike me before it finishes. If it does, I'll just be back shortly after. Hopefully it'll just be a temporary knockout. And then I will, I think, play that Maddie thing that I've not listened to, because it seems like it could play all the way through, and then I can figure out. I think I'll come back to Kareen for some. Not sure. Ghost is on it at 5:30 anyway, so I'll knock off for that. But yeah.
What those patients are facing.
In the modern era, by far the most studied indication is advanced cancer-related psychological and existential distress. There have been 3 randomized controlled trials between UCLA, Johns Hopkins, and NYU. It includes 92 participants. And between the 3 groups, what we found collectively is that single-dose psilocybin produces rapid anti-anxiety and antidepressant effects that are of very large magnitude. In fact, after 1 day of getting single-dose psilocybin, those in the psilocybin group, 80% no longer met criteria for cancer depression. And that endured at 7 weeks, and at the end of the trial, 8 months later, compared to the placebo group, where there, was a 20% were in remission. And we also found that a single dose to last at least 7 weeks, but possibly longer than that, is a kind of breakthrough in psychiatry. We don't have anything that works rapidly except ketamine. It degrades over a week. So to have something that can work so quickly and last so long, could have enormous benefit. And in addition, we found psilocybin improves quality of life. It decreased existential distress. We measured cancer-related demoralization and hopelessness.
I think we have a graph that shows that really illustrates pretty well the difference that you're talking about. So tell us what this is.
Yeah, so you can see the typical antidepressants, if you test antidepressants in the general population, people have major depression. It's actually, now that the data from pharma that was suppressed has been published, it's the 60% is lower. These are people that respond. It's maybe more like 53, and the placebo is a little bit higher, maybe 45. So for severe depression, antidepressants tend to work. For other forms, they don't. The medicines that take a while to work, they can have enormous side effects. In cancer-related depression, the meta-analyses show that the antidepressants don't work any better than placebo. It's about a 40%. So if our finding is real, that one day after getting it, 80% are in remission compared to 40% if they responded several weeks, it could have, big implications in the treatment of people, facing end-of-life distress who are depressed and anxious.
We actually were able to interview two of the participants who were in that study on using psilocybin, and I think we can take a look at that.
I was diagnosed with ovarian cancer, stage 1C. My first thought was, now I know what I'm going to die of, which couldn't have been true anyway. You still never know.
I felt a lump in my neck that came out positive for Hodgkin's lymphoma. Things just really spun out of control.
I was given a psilocybin.
I took the pill.
I was in a space where nothing existed except me.
I became aware that this is probably what death would feel like. I'm still with my soul, but I'm not here anymore. And it sort of gave me a lot of comfort because it really wasn't that bad. It kind of gave me peace of mind because I had such a tremendous fear of this unknown that was death.
I saw a large lump under my ribs, and it was not the cancer. It was my fear. I just screamed, "You, who the do you think you are? Get out!" It was my real fear, and it went away. I banished it.
I saw this like smoke come out of my body like a mushroom cloud. I was thinking, from now on, there's no more fear of death or cancer to terrorize me. I'm healed. I have everything to look forward to.
And then I started to have very deep feelings. The only way I could describe it, even though I'm an atheist and I still am, was just bathed in God's love.
It was untainted. It was just pure happiness, pure harmony. It's beautiful. I have felt a different reality. It's almost like hope.
We actually have Octavian Mihai and Dinah Baser here this evening. I think right up here in the front row. You're both here. Octavian, where are you now? How are you doing? Thank you for coming and sharing your story.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm doing great. My cancer is cured, basically. It's been over 5 years now. Yeah, and I feel incredible. I mean, I haven't had any more anxiety. I'm just living life normally.
And do you credit that with the drug?
Absolutely. I mean, it basically all ended the moment the session ended.
And it never came back?
No.
Amazing. Really amazing. Dinah, thank you for your explicit honesty in the piece. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. I have other anxieties. I mean, the state of the world is not really what I would wish for my grandchildren.
We've all got to work on that.
I'm not afraid of cancer. I have not been since that experience. It's been 9 years for me since I was diagnosed and treated, so I've been in remission all that time. And I was suffering such terrible fear and anxiety for the 2 years until I had the psilocybin. And I just don't think about it anymore. I don't think about cancer. I don't think about, I had ovarian. I don't think about that coming back. I've had a few little episodes where I had genuine concern for my health, and I went to the doctor and had it checked out, and I was fine. And I didn't freak out, you know, it was just, well, let's just see what this is. So very, very different.
Had you tried other therapies before this?
I had not, except maybe eating a lot of candy.
And you credit it, as Octavian does, with the single dose of
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah.
And what would you say to someone in a position such as you were, who was having the types of thoughts you were having?
I wish that this drug were available therapeutically. Absolutely. And I know people that are in that situation now, and I really feel for them, and I wish they could have this.
Yeah, I agree with that. I actually, before I tried this, I actually tried Xanax, which was the typical thing someone, you know, the doctor would prescribe to me to kind of like help me with the anxiety. And I have to say, it really wasn't working, except for those like 6 hours or so while it was in my system. After that, I would just wake up and it would all just be back to normal. So yeah, that's something I tried and it really didn't work. So I really think that it would be important for this to become available, because it's pretty much, in my opinion, the only thing that's actually getting to the cause of the problem.
Thank you both so much. Really very interesting. So right now, the most of the research currently being done that's finished was in patients who had cancer. Is that correct? But we know that there are many other conditions, such as, you know, PTSD, alcoholism, opioid abuse, and of course, depression itself. And I think we have a graph here that shows exactly how common it is. 300 million people globally. The World Health Organization says it's a leading cause of disability worldwide. And just here in the US, it costs $210 billion annually. So when we're talking about rolling out these drugs and looking at these different conditions, if you can, for depression, where are we with using these drugs in depression, not just in depression related to cancer, and opioids, and alcoholism, and PTSD, so on and so forth? Can you break that down?
Yeah, there's a big push now to develop psilocybin to treat major depression. It's 10% of the U.S. population. It's one of the biggest causes of global disability. And the data from the cancer work was taken up
Now, I've travelled all the way to America, to a place called Portland in the state of Maine, and I'm going to meet and interview Peter Hyatt. Peter Hyatt is an expert on statement analysis, and he actually gives lectures and teaches people how to analyze witness statements. We're going to be discussing the Madeline's expertise is in statement analysis. Peter, can you just tell us, how did you become interested in statement analysis?
Quite a number of years ago, I was a self-described, naive, very easy to deceive person. So I began reading books on statement analysis just as a hobby. But eventually, this led into employment where I was given initial 200 hours of training back in late 2001, I believe, in legally sound interviewing. And from there, I went into more formal training, worked on cases as a state investigator for allegations of child abuse and later on allegations of adult abuse. But then I went to teaching statement analysis, and after teaching it, it was very natural that those who attended would ask for assistance. And sometimes that assistance translated into, would you do the investigation for us, especially in private companies? From there, I became more and more involved with law enforcement, in training law enforcement, assisting law enforcement. And so currently I work full-time as an analyst and an instructor, teaching law enforcement, teaching journalists, lawyers, therapists, all different professionals who study the techniques used to discern deception, but also content analysis. So it goes well beyond just saying if someone is lying or not. What are they lying about? Why are they lying? Which leads to the ultimate is when someone sends an anonymous threatening letter. Statement analysis is often able to identify who wrote this letter and what the person that wrote the letter is like. Right. This allows them to know, is this threat real? The training involves testing, quizzes, practice, more tests, more quiz, more practice. Eventually, we offer certification, and this is also part of the University of Maine's continuing education units, we call it CEUs, for professional licenses. So people are involved in formal training are able to reach a level of certification. The certification is only worth what the work shows it to be. And in many detecting deception schools, they run around 70% success. For us, that's would be an abysmal result. These investigators are running at or near 100% success rate.
Right. And you can test that by, you make an assertion during the investigation stage based on their statements, and then if someone is then convicted on other evidence, you know that you were correct. So that gives you a way of measuring the performance. Yeah,
that's one way of measuring. This is actually rather exciting. An easier way to measure the success is the confession.
Yeah,
the confession or admission, and we have that more than convictions, because when a person is deceptive, and during the interview process, where they are confronted using their own words, it is legally sound, it is non-interpretive, but where they're confronted with their own words, they often will either confess or admit what they have done. Now, the difference between a confession and admission is legally we need one or the other, but an admission is to acknowledge what one has done. A confession would say, what I've done is this, plus it's morally wrong. We don't need a confession. We do need an admission. Mm-hmm. Then we have something, it's called the A to Z. This is very exciting. An A to Z is where an investigator, say in law enforcement, receives a report of an allegation. Someone has stolen. And before any of the interviews or any of the investigation begins, the person who is accused of stealing is told to write out what happened. They are to sit down comfortably, choose their own words. They're given bottled water in a comfortable setting. There is no threats. There is no coercion. Please tell us in your own words what happened. And the person says, well, where do I begin? Wherever you feel comfortable beginning. So we don't introduce any language to them or any words. The person writes out what happened. If we are then take that statement and properly analyze it in a scientific method, meaning we expect the same results, putting in the same data repeatedly, the investigator can now know this person did it. When he did it, investigation has been shortened greatly. And A to Z is this, is the person is then interviewed based on their own words from that analysis. It's called analytical interviewing. No new language is introduced. The subject is not threatened at all. The subject is not interrupted. He is allowed to speak freely about what happened. When he reaches a point where he is caught by his own words, he often will admit what he did. When he admits what he has done, the investigator then takes the analysis, hands it to him, and says, review this for me. And there's often this type of unity between the investigator and your analysis was correct here. Yeah, you're right. I did hide the gun there, and they're able to go through it. That investigator is now filled with resolve and confidence that he takes into other investigations. So it is fantastic traction for their careers. It's a strength for truth, and it becomes a lesson like no other.
The expression "giving someone enough rope to hang themselves" comes to mind.
That would be a good way of using it. They made their own rope with their own words. We didn't hand it to them in that sense. So it's legally sound.
Right. And obviously the police have the benefit of being able to put someone in that position and not force them to be questioned, but request them to do that. But certain cases that have been high profile in the media, we don't always get that. We don't always get the luxury to be able to put a subject in an interview type situation to write out their version of events. We go by snippets that have come out in the media, and we are going to come on to a case shortly. Can you recall what the first case you looked at was?
The first case that I worked for someone else, I've had success on my own, but the first case that I actually worked for someone else came after an instruction where there had been a theft, and local police had investigated the theft, but what they determined was that the company had too many employees that could have done it, and therefore they just closed it as unsolved. And the company had sent employees for training, and they asked if I could review their work, and then they eventually asked, could you take over for us? So I had all the employees write out what they did during their shift. I came back and said, here's the one that stole it, here's when he stole it, here's how he stole it. They asked if I would conduct the interview. I did, and he confessed.
Right, really good. And have you got a rough figure as to how many cases you've looked at?
Hundreds. It would be hard to tell, because it's most cases, I should say, at this point in my life, most cases I'm just assisting investigators. They're the ones doing the work. They're the ones that, and many of them are so good that they'll send me their analysis. That's an important thing. A good analyst never stands on his or her own footing. We always ask someone to check our work, always a second set of eyes, at least. And so we have many now in training that other law enforcement is asking them for help now because they're so good at it. They're driven for justice.
And is your work ever used in court or by other professionals?
Well, it's used in court routinely. Statement analysis, like the polygraph, is not admissible as evidence. What happens is during even a cross-examination, the trained investigator is using statement analysis as he goes into testimony. So, for instance, an example of this is a man who was accused of murder, took the stand in his own defense. And this is an example of how a prosecutor used the statement analysis to a successful conclusion. The man had been accused of killing a 13-year-old little girl out in the woods. He had claimed that he was alone in the woods. So, and when he took the stand in his own defense, the prosecutor asked, well, tell us what happened and what happened next. Those are the two most powerful questions that we have. What happened? What happened next? It allows them to choose whatever they want to choose. And this is an important point. The average person has a vocabulary of about 20,000 words. When you ask someone what happened, they must go into that vocabulary, decide what words to use out of the 20,000, where to order them, what verb tenses to use, what pronouns to use, where to place each word next to each other to communicate in less than a microsecond of time. That is a process that, when disrupted by deception, we catch. This man said he was alone. I was sitting down admiring the deciduous trees when we were losing daylight, so I got up, and the prosecutor said, "Excuse me, you said we were losing daylight?" The pronoun we is instinctive and intuitive. It meant he was not alone. The defense called for recess. The next day they came back and attempted to explain away why the word we should mean I. The jury didn't buy it, and he was convicted.
Okay. And do you purely look at written statements, or do you listen to audio, or do you watch a video?
D, all of the above.
All of the above.
Yeah, the training begins with only written statements, and that's really the most effective means of doing this. But what happens is very natural. It's called statement analysis, moves to a form of discourse analysis when someone becomes better and better over time. Their listening skills improve, and they're able to analyze as they're speaking.
Okay, and I've got a list here of some areas that perhaps can indicate deception. Do you want to mention some of it, Peter, before we analyze the interview that we're going to look at?
Sure.
So hesitation.
Well, we look at a disruption. Now, some people naturally will hesitate as they speak, so we look for a pattern. If someone is suddenly hesitating, we want to know why. So we call this a sensitivity indicator. I mean, for example, if I ask you a question and you answer the question with a question, you're buying yourself some time. I know this is an important question. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're being deceptive, but you've sure caught my attention.
Right. Okay. And searching for the right words.
Well, thoughtful people can do that, but when they are under a certain context, like in a missing child case, we want to know what is the relationship between the missing child and the subject speaking. If it is a very close relationship, you generally don't see someone pausing or searching just for the right words. They don't care. All they care about is the missing child.
And diverting, avoiding questions.
A common form of deception.
All right. What about unnecessary expansion on certain subjects, like using woolly jargon and that kind of thing? Can that be a form of deception?
Yes, as a matter of fact, it's one of the most important things we look at. When someone uses an unnecessary word, unnecessary phrase, unnecessary detail, we deem it as doubly important.
Right.
I'll give you a good example of that. When I go to the store, in order for me to go to a store, I have to leave where I'm at. So someone will say, I went to the store. The pronoun I went past tense, and the store is where they went. It is very likely, statistically, to be reliable. But if someone says, I left my house and went to the store, it's unnecessary to tell us that they left the house, because you can't get to the store unless you leave. So we know something happened at the house that you're not telling me. 70% likelihood that it has to do with time or rushing or couldn't find my keys, something like that. But 30% of the time, it's critically withheld information.
Right. And what about distancing language, where you try and refer to a group rather than yourself?
Yeah, there's a couple different forms of distancing language, and we look at distancing language and flag it as such. I went Christmas shopping with Heather. I and Heather couldn't be any further apart in the sentence than I just made it. What caused the distancing? Did we have an argument? Did I not want to go shopping? I could have said, Heather and I went Christmas shopping, but I didn't. So I went Christmas shopping with Heather, puts me and Heather far apart. Sometimes the distance is nothing more than geographical. Sometimes it is strongly psychological. In cases where we expect very closeness, like if an assault case, a missing person case, an assault case is very personal. The language should reflect that. When someone has something happen to them where their body space was invaded and they were harmed, there's a hormonal response that's always going to show itself in the language. So when someone says that they were assaulted and there's distancing language, we look for deception.
Okay. And what about the use of the word would? I would have done instead of I did do.
Sure. It's one of the things that deceptive people use. And here's why. I said before that the average person has 20,000 words in their vocabulary. A more intelligent person might have 25, even 30,000 words. And when you ask them what happened, they must go into their memory. And when experiential memory speaks, it is very smooth and it goes in chronological order. A lie will disrupt that, and that causes internal stress. So people say, well, sociopaths don't feel stressed when they're lying. That's not true. They feel very stressed when they're lying because they don't want to be caught. So to disrupt that process is very stressful. And those that are really good at lying will use a substitute of words. So one of the things they'll do, instead of saying, I did not use performance-enhancing drugs, they say, I never used performance-enhancing drugs. I would never. And what they're doing is they're actually distancing themselves from an actual denial. We saw this many years ago in Lance Armstrong, where he repeatedly used the word would never or never. In all the years that I watched his interviews, all the transcripts that I've seen, not once did he say, I didn't use performance-enhancing drugs. He avoided it.
And what about qualifying words which change or weaken a statement? Tell us about that.
Sure. It can be used appropriately. It can be used inappropriately. If I said to you, I locked my keys in the car, you can be confident that I know where my keys are. They're locked in the car. If I said to you, I think I locked my keys in the car, that's called a weak assertion because I'm not certain if they're there. I did not shoot that man is very different from saying, I don't think I shot the man.
Yeah. Okay. And what about using the past tense about a recently missing person?
This is critical. In all missing person cases, we look at the use of past tense. And Richard, when it comes to a missing child and a close relative, meaning the biological father or the mother, there is such a natural denial, even stronger in women than men, that we have cases where a child has gone missing, the child has been found deceased, and the mother refuses to reference her child in the past tense. She just cannot accept it. So if a mother in particular, or a father, but especially a mother with the increased intensity of the bond, references her child in the past tense, we want to know something. We want to know why she thinks or believes the child is deceased. Because at times, even if the police tell them, we believe your child is dead, a mother will not accept that. Mm-hmm. So when a mother of a missing child speaks of the child in the past tense, early on, before the processing has taken place, she's giving us a strong indication that she may know more than she's saying.
All right. And what about refusing a polygraph test? Can you read anything into that or not?
Yes. John Walsh has become famous, unfortunately, for the tragedy that happened in his life here in America. And he advises people very publicly. What I mean by very publicly is not just through his own website, but through every television appearance he does regarding missing children, is he says to the parents, take a polygraph immediately so the police can do their work and find your child. When someone refuses to take a polygraph, they have a reason to refuse it. And that's of great concern.
Right. Okay. And tell us about the ratio of how much time people spend when they're telling a story at the beginning, the middle, and end, and what that might reveal.
Sure. We actually measure the content of someone's account. And a truthful account will generally be broken down into 3 parts. If your child went missing, and I would ask you questions about it, the most important thing to you is your child missing. That's what you're going to talk about. And so the bulk of your words are going to be focused on your child and what happened. You might introduce it saying, I went to dinner, and that's the short introduction, and then you talk about your child, and then afterwards you called 911, or you called police, or you called for assistance. But the bulk of your account is going to be found right in the middle. What happened to your child is the most important thing to you. Deceptive people who have guilty knowledge of what happened to their child don't want to want to talk about it because it causes internal stress. So they talk a great deal of time in what happened beforehand. That's where they focus their details. Whereas any parent without guilty knowledge, any innocent parent, is going to focus upon the child. Now, when I say innocent, I mean a de facto innocence, not a judicial innocence. People are innocent until proven guilty in a court of law in the United States. What I mean by innocent is the de facto or in fact innocence. They have no guilty knowledge of what happened to their missing child. That type of innocence. So it's important to...
Yes, I understand that. Now, you run a blog, Peter, where a lot of this statement analysis subject is discussed. Can you put everything on there, all of your professional cases, or are you limited as to what you can write on the blog?
Yeah, the blog is only cases that I'm not professionally involved in. So the most fascinating cases never reach the blog. The blog is also a tool of advertising for my business. The blog catches the attention of investigators and who say, oh, I'd like to study that more in depth. Most of them have had some training in their academies. Some were privileged to go on to the FBI's National Academy, where they learned deception detection. But what I produce on the blog is short summaries, not in-depth analysis. It would take far too long to explain some of the things there. On the case of missing Madeleine McCann, I didn't cover it a great deal. It fascinated me, but I didn't cover a great deal because it seemed that it was saturated with coverage. And when something becomes that heavily covered, I generally move on to something else. And so I put a general analysis on the blog about it, but really in the interview, there's much more there than much more in the content of the analysis than is on the blog.
So this was an interview that the McCanns did in 2011, and I think it was on Australian television. And you did an analysis of that interview, of what they said in that interview, of their statements. So you transcribed the interview first, and then you've put your analysis on the blog. So why did you choose that particular one? Was there any reason, or was it just the first one you came across? What was there any reason why you chose that one? Because they've done a lot of interviews.
Yeah, this was one that someone sent the transcripts to me.
Right.
Transcription services is expensive and it's time consuming. I can't do that. I can't go that. So there are people that are associated with the blog who will send trusted transcribed interviews to me. And I have to make a decision at any given time. What do I have enough time to go into? I also have to weigh in is that if I get involved with this and law enforcement sees it and contacts me, I've got to delete it and try to assist them.
Sorry, you have to delete that. Why would you have to delete it? You mean on that case if they get in touch with you?
On any there that it could hinder the investigation, I take it down.
Oh, I see. So let's say that people who were investigating the Madeleine case weren't happy with that and asked you to take it down, right? I see.
Yeah, or if and this has happened before too, is where a police department will say, I saw your analysis, it's really good. Could you help me on this case? I delete it because I can't comment on something that's going to be adjudicated.
Right.
I don't ever want to interfere with justice. Justice comes before anything else.
Right. And before we do some analysis on this interview, because you've reappraised it, is that right to say that this 2011 interview, you've done more detailed analysis on it? Is that?
Yes, my conclusion hasn't changed. My general conclusion hasn't changed, but what I've done is more intense analysis, and there's several reasons for that. One of the reasons is your interest. Your interest is a professional interest here that is deeper than just an average person reading an article. You'd like to know the truth and in detail, and so I can give you some of the details. But there's also something else, and this really, when we do analysis of a case and we review the analysis later on, we generally will pick up a little bit here, a little bit there that we may have missed or didn't focus upon. When we reanalyze something from what we call disparate eyes, from a mind that has moved on to other things, It is called the 40% rule. The same content may yield 40% more information. And it's quite practical in the sense that your mind goes on a scent. You pick up a scent and you follow it. And once you follow it to completion, you've got a good portrait. When you look at it again, maybe a month later, you don't have that same scent. And you say, oh, I need to focus a little more on something else here now. And that yields more and more content. Then you can take it and hand it to another trained analyst who now brings in more information. And so, although it doesn't change the conclusion, it enhances the analysis itself. We're literally entering into the perception of reality from the speaker.
Before you tell us your analysis on this interview, just want to mention the legal aspects of this. This is opinion. There's no statement of innocence or guilt. Is that just tell us what an analysis is in those terms?
Yeah, this is, we call it presuppositional thinking. We go into a statement presupposing an opinion. Now, when someone speaks publicly, there's an expectation that is presupposed. You're either going to believe me or you're not. And the public, we have a right to say, I believe what they're telling me. I don't believe what they're telling me. It is just my opinion. If I say I believe someone or I don't believe someone, as a statement analyst, it's my opinion, and here's why I have this opinion. So I'm able to explain why. Now, this is not, it sounds like a moral exercise. It's not. When someone speaks, we presuppose that everything they're telling us is the truth. We actually go into the analysis believing everything they said, unless they talk us out of it. If they talk us out of it, not only are we able to pick up that they are deceiving us, but the words that they chose in deceiving us can often reveal what happened. And that's what I believe is the case we're going to look at.
But because the analysis is your opinion, you've not had any legal issues from subjects that you've done analysis on in the past. Just to ask that question.
Well, I've had some complaints. Representative Anthony Weiner from New York was upset several years ago about my analysis. He had been sexting, sending sexual pictures to people from his phone, and he claimed that it wasn't him doing it. And so I had received a complaint from them, and I said, number one, it's my opinion. Number two, I'll take it down when he tells the truth. Right. And since then, it's
okay.
Yeah.
And you're confident, because you obviously understand why I'm asking that question, don't you? Yeah. But you're confident that because it's opinion, it's absolutely fine to say, and there's no ramifications.
Yeah, unless someone has been convicted in a court of law, they are judicially innocent, and we have an opinion whether we believe that's accurate or not. However, because of what I do for a living, my opinion has consequences. So if I am able to go through an entire interview like the McCanns gave and make a conclusion, it's going to impact my ability to provide for my family. So anyone can have an opinion that's perfectly appropriate. It's legal to have an opinion. If I have an opinion, I can say anywhere between 10% to 100% certainty of my opinion. There's something on the line there for me. If I am wrong, law enforcement is not likely to hire me to work for them.
Right.
But first, for 4 years, Kate and Jerry McCann have lived a never-ending ordeal, and they still don't know when or if it'll ever end. It began on a family holiday in Portugal when Madeline, their 4-year-old daughter, simply vanished. She hasn't been seen since. Tonight, the mystery deepens. You're about to see home video never shown before and learn the vital clue Madeline left behind. Here's Ronnie Sadler.
Okay, spin around, darling. Right round. Oh, yes, I can see your wings.
It's a big smile.
Pretty.
She was an incredibly beautiful baby, actually.
You sound like the most biased parents on the planet now, but she was just really compact and just a really kind of nice, round, perfect head, and and then she opened her mouth and well, I knew she was with us.
This would not be considered a blatant past tense use of the verb was. Here she says, she was incredibly beautiful baby, actually. One could argue that she, at age 3, she's no longer a baby, and that they are referring to a period of when she was born, and that would be an appropriate use of the past tense. So I don't assign to this a red flag because of the context. It does concern me at this point, it's just a little bit of alarm now, that in an interview of a missing child, they're talking about her in the past tense. I expect some form of follow-up that will be in the present tense. A single slip into past tense is an indicator of belief or knowledge that the child is deceased. And that's what's concerning about that. But also some other things that aren't any major blaring red flags, but as they build point after point, they become concerning. One of the things is this: parents of missing children who show guilty knowledge of what happened to the child will often find a subtle way of insulting the child, insulting the victim, blaming the victim, disparaging the victim. When someone is missing, like or when a child is deceased, we call it the angelic view. The child is elevated beyond any normal child. Everything is wonderful. And we hear the subtle disparagement in guilty parents. Casey Anthony actually called her little daughter a name, a derogatory name. In shaken baby syndrome cases, the baby wouldn't stop crying as if it was the baby's fault. The baby wouldn't take her formula as if the baby was at fault. And what that is, in guilty statements, within human nature, there is some drive to justify what happened, to clear oneself. So I don't like the several things about this. I don't like a past tense reference without following up present tense. It continued there, and we have a praising of the baby that I do like. And then when she opened her mouth, the whole world knew she was with us. It's a subtle way of saying that she was really loud. I'm not sure that sounds like praise. I have 6 children. I have 2 grandchildren, and I listen to the words of parents regularly. And given the setting of an interview where the child is missing, it's not something I expected to hear. Now, it's not a point I'm going to hang my hat on, but I've been called to the attention now that maybe Madeline was a little bit loud for them. It's a really strange place to be giving even a small complaint.
Should McCann level volume, there's no doubt about that.
Well done. Okay, let's sing another one.
I always wanted to be a mother. I don't know if maybe that's down from being an only child and sort of, wanting that feeling of family.
Madeline was the daughter Kate and Jerry McCann always wanted. For years, Kate struggled to fall pregnant, so when Madeline came along, they felt blessed. They loved to photograph her, and she loved being photographed. This is the last picture of Madeline, taken 7 hours before she disappeared.
There's a photo of her that afternoon that was taken at 20:29, I think, because we've got it on a digital camera, and she was just sitting by, just paddling, and she's so happy.
I am concerned, again lightly, but it is increasing, and here's why. They're speaking in terms of nostalgia. This is what we do when a child is not coming back. They are waxing nostalgic about a child that's missing. And this is going to become, right now, a very minor point, is going to become a major red flag for deception. If you are able to put yourself into their shoes, which is what we always do, Put yourself in the shoes. What would you be like? What would you be like if your child was missing? And this is what is terribly missing from the interview. Statement analysis deals with what one tells us. It also deals with what one doesn't tell us. When parents of missing children have no involvement or no guilty knowledge of what happened to the child, their focus is on what the child is experiencing now. Does she have her favorite blankie? Does she have her teddy bear? Is someone looking at her warm smile? Are they kissing her? Is she scared at night? They are consumed by these thoughts. These people are speaking as if they have already processed something, which is her death.
It's been 1,543 days since Madeleine McCann vanished. To keep Madeleine's case alive, this private couple has revealed more of themselves than ever before. Kate and Jerry are both doctors. They married in 1998, and in 2001, after 3 years of failing to conceive naturally, they began IVF. 18 months later, on the eve of another hospital appointment, Kate did a home pregnancy test.
A little line appeared on the test. You know, I'm a doctor, and it says on the box any kind of line is a positive. But I was like, oh, I'm not sure. But there's that faint kind of.
Showed its mean. I'm like, it's definitely.
No question. And obviously we had a scan, and there was a little beating heart, and that was our little Madeleine, you know. So.
Who's that present for?
That's for Andrea.
Are we going to post it today? Who says Say yes, Daddy.
Yes, Daddy.
Okay.
And then, in May 2003, 3 became 5.
When she first saw the twins, she was just ecstatic. Absolutely ecstatic.
Oh, these are very big tonics.
Felt blessed, really, at that time.
You said the family felt really complete.
Yeah. We did feel incredibly lucky.
In late April 2007, the McCanns decided to travel to Portugal for a family holiday. In the pink pants climbing the stairs to the plane is Madeleine. Overseas holiday as a family, and they went with 3 other couples.
Jerry, we're on holiday.
It's a small resort. It was out of season, end of April, beginning of May, and it was incredibly quiet. We felt very relaxed there, very relaxed.
A couple things about that is we like to hear people speak for themselves how they felt, not for we. Then we look at anything that's repeated. So we have the word relaxed, repeated. We have the word very repeated. So very relaxed, and not for himself, Jerry, but for both of them speaking. Okay. So if they're speaking together, that's appropriate. They're now speaking, he's now speaking of their emotion together, and that's not always so usual. And they are telling us how very relaxed they are. This is narrative storytelling. This is setting a scenario. We call it the normal factor. If you take a 7-year-old child and you say to the child, once upon a time, on a day that was just like every other day, the child will sit up knowing that what's about to happen was unlike any other day. Mm-hmm. That's called the normal factor. If someone says, I'm a normal man, what they're saying to you is either they themselves or someone else has said, you're not normal. Okay? It's unnecessary. Well, here, what we call this as a need to persuade that this was a normal day is telling us he knows it's anything but. Mm. That's storytelling. That's when those in law enforcement will say, I feel like they're storytelling. They're actually narrative building. They're bringing your emotions into an account. Instead of saying, my daughter's missing. I don't know what she's experiencing. I don't know who she's looking at. I don't know if they're giving her medicine. With that urgency, not only did they wax nostalgic, but now they're allowing you to enter into their emotions. And I want you to make sure that you understand my emotions were very relaxed. So at some point you say, wow, you sure seem to need to convince me that it was a normal, relaxing day. Why do you have to convince me of that?
In the evening, the children were put to bed by 7:30, before the adults had dinner together down at the pool. From where they ate, Kate and Jerry could see the back of their apartment and left the door unlocked.
If you measure it directly from the back of the apartment as a straight line to where we're dining, it's only 50 metres.
50 metres?
That's a direct line now.
49.4 on Google if you want to be really specific.
Okay, now one would say in defense of them is that, hey, they've been accused of neglect. And they're defending themselves, so much to the point that Kate went online and Googled it and found out exactly the distance that it was away. There's a problem with that, however. She's missing. I expect them to talk about not defense of themselves, but concern for her right now, at this moment of the interview. It's not there. Statement analysis deals with what one says and what one doesn't say. Now we're being given a lot of detail about the distance. Before, I was given a lot of detail about what Madeline was like. I've not heard yet a single detail about what Madeline is experiencing in the hands of strangers.
But the proximity was very close.
This is insightful because, first of all, the word but will refute what just preceded it or minimize what preceded it. But this is insightful. I simply ask a listener to answer this question for me. Who are they most concerned about? Are they most concerned about Madeline or about themselves? How can they not be concerned about Madeline? How could they even care? They should be really accusing themselves of neglect. The fact that they don't accuse themselves of neglect but are justifying themselves tells you something else. Not only do we not have concern for Madeline, we have concern for self. Why would you be concerned for self?
Madeline and the twins slept in a room at the front of Villa 5A. Kate and Jerry believed their shuttered bedroom window, overlooking the car park and street, was closed and locked. Every half an hour, the parents would take turns to check on each other's children.
We thought that was the best thing, and it seemed to work absolutely fine, and we didn't have any problem right until the Thursday morning when Madeline said, why didn't you come when we cried last night? We thought that's odd.
Okay, well, when you look at the word but I mentioned before, that should call your attention to what preceded it. And what Kate had said was 49.4 on Google, if you want to be really specific. And I asked the question, who would want to be really specific in this case? Well, the investigators would be. When a child goes missing, the innocent parent's brain never shuts off. This is why they don't sleep, not just the anxiety, but they replay everything in their mind due to a hormonal rush. The fight or flight hormone is elevated, it's up there. In this hormonal increase, their mind goes to detail, particularly when they try to sleep. They will often call the voicemail of a detective and say, I just thought of this and I just thought of that. Always on alert, high alert. Here we have this type of high alert detail, but not about Madeline, about justifying themselves. So with that context, the context now is they are concerned for themselves. When a child goes missing, this is very personal to a mother, and this is very personal to a father. No matter what, when a child falls, a father feels responsible. The father didn't protect the fall, even though he really has no reason to blame himself. We do that. It's just natural. We speak for ourselves. At this point, I am not comfortable with the word we here. We thought, because now he's entering into what she thought. And listen to his words. We thought, not I, but we thought that was the best thing, and then a pause or and it seemed to work not fine, but absolutely fine. Then he says, we didn't have any problems. Now, when we ask people what happened is limited to a finite number of things, and they will choose which is most important to tell us. When someone tells us what didn't happen is an infinite number of things. So when they tell us what didn't happen, we are on high alert now for very, very possible deception. And here's what we have. Until Madeline said, or when Madeline said, "Why didn't you come when we cried last night?" How old was Madeline when?
Yeah,
this?
three, nearly 4. Yeah.
Sure. As a parent, as a grandparent, and someone who taught parenting classes for years, many years ago, children are by nature narcissistic. A child will say, "When I cried," not we. The child is not going to show concern at that age for little babies, unless two things: unless the child is a little bit older, 5 or 6, and the child is parentified, meaning the neglect in the home has been so severe that the 5 or 6-year-old is being the parent to others. Mm-hmm. And you'll see this in child abuse cases where a neglectful mother will say, "Look how she can cook her own meals on a little hands that should never be near a stove or an oven." The neglectful parent is boasting about it. Well, here, Madeline did not express concern for others crying other than herself. She's too little to do that. It's "when I cried." So at that point, based on that pronoun usage, as a professional analyst, I'm comfortable saying this is not a truthful statement.
You now think somebody had either tried to get into the room or was in the room and woke them up the night before?
It just seems too much of a coincidence that she made that comment and then that happened that night.
Yes, what she's now doing is she's floating doubt for people. She's floating doubt. And she's going to do it more intensely coming up in a moment here. But she's allowing for people to enter into an emotion that doesn't exist. And this is very important in statement analysis. When we experience something that is emotionally charged, I once had a man point a 9mm gun at my head as he was robbing someone in a drug robbery. After it was over, I called police to make the report. I was fine. A couple hours later, I shook with emotion. Like, what just happened? The reason being, it takes time for us to process emotions. If I were to tell you a truthful account of what happened, it's not riveting. It would sound very boring. If I process all the emotions years later and I tell it in a storytelling, I would say this: I once stood in the darkness, and when a man pointed the 9mm gun at my head, the hairs on the back of my neck stood up. And I would tell a story to engage you into the emotions. We call that artificial placement of emotions. Editing, storytelling, narrative building. By the way, I'm not sure if anyone is paying attention at this point. There's a missing child here that I've had no concern expressed for. Mm-hmm. This is why this interview jumped out at me.
All right.
She's actually bringing to the point where the 3-year-old child is some sort of intuitive expert.
Right.
Your child is missing. What are you doing? When are you going to talk about that?
Looking back now, you think that could have been your one chance to save her?
Well, as soon as I discovered that Madeline had been taken, it just hit me straight away what she'd said that morning, and I just thought, oh my God, someone tried the night before.
Okay, in statement analysis, we have a number of sensitivity indicators that are very closely associated with deception. In fact, in this sentence itself, there's enough to conclude deception. First of all, she is infusing emotion into reporting what just should have been said. Second of all, she's going to a conclusion. She didn't say, as soon as I saw that Madeline was missing. She said had been taken. She didn't know that. What parents of missing children do is they report their child missing. They don't know if someone took them, they don't know what happened, or if the child ran away. By jumping to the conclusion, she wants to make sure that you know there's a kidnapping. She has a need to persuade the audience there was a kidnapping. The need to persuade itself underlies the weakness. Then the inclusion of the emotions at the perfect point of the statement tells us that's artificially placed there, narrative building. Then we have the infusion of deity. This is often found statistically in deceptive people. They're looking for a greater witness than their own words. When I ask someone, why should I believe you? Because I told the truth, because I'm telling you the truth. The weight of testimony is because it's true, which says basically, if you don't believe me, you're an idiot. Get a new job. You shouldn't even be investigating because I told the truth. The burden is on you because I'm free because I told the truth. No matter how much you dig, you'll never find contrary because it's truth. The entire weight of the argument is based upon truth. If someone says, I didn't steal the money, why should I believe you? Because I'm telling the truth. 99.9% north, they're telling the truth. That's how powerful it is. They're basing their denial upon truth. When someone has a need to bring in a divine witness to what they're saying, and here in this case of doing that, she's making the assertion that Madeline had been taken, which is already conclusionary, then calling on a divine witness by the inclusion of the word God. Okay? We could indicate here deception by itself and be confident that she's not telling the truth either.
All right.
Excuse me, another point with this, because there's actually a lot more here in this small answer. The word just, in statement analysis, we look at dependent words. Dependent words are those that don't work without another thought. So if I said, this is my only child, instead of saying this is my child, this is my only child, what are you thinking of? The word only means you're thinking of something else. Did you lose a child? Did you try to have a child, couldn't have another one? You know, what happened there? Something happened. In her case, the word just, it just hit me, and the word just hit me is the timing of the emotion. Okay, the emotion doesn't belong here, but it's part of her storytelling. And I just thought, my God, someone tried the night before. The word just there means she's comparing this thought with something else. Deceptive people do it all the time. They're comparing the thought that they're floating for the audience with the truth, what really happened. It's a small point, but when enough small points come together, it's a large point. In that answer, we have her logical conclusion, her comparisons. We have her giving detail that doesn't add up to what children respond like. And we know that at this particular point in the statement, her concern should not be what a 3-year-old thought, but what my 3-year-old is going through right now. And that again is missing.
On Thursday night, Kate put her daughter to bed for the last time.
But my memory of that evening is really vivid. I mean, she was really tired, but she was just cuddled up on my knee and we read a story. And we also had some treats. I had some crisps and biscuits. And then after they'd done the usual kind of toilet teeth, we went through to the bedroom and read another story, If You're Happy and You Know It. Yeah.
When she moves into experiential memory of what happened, she can choose anything she'd like to tell us. The words she chooses are going to be important. So my memory of that evening, first of all, we have the word that, which distanced herself from that night, and which could be appropriate because it's chronologically it's distant. She said, it's really vivid. It's really vivid. And that's interesting because that type of clarification comes when there's a hormonal increase. The fight or flight hormone that cortisol and others that rise in the body to the brain brings great clarity of thought. But if this was a normal, quiet, happy evening, what would cause such vividness in her memory? So what she's doing is she's narrative building, but she's telling us that this night was anything but normal. Now, this is my assertion to the viewers. By saying it's really vivid, she's choosing these words. She's telling us she wants us to believe that her memory is very strong with details. It's not just vivid, it's really vivid. And I believe her. I mean, she was really tired. Now, she is using her own words. We must believe her. We must listen to her. I believe that her memory of that evening is very vivid because her hormones were on super high alert. I believe that Madeline was really tired, and that Madeline's tiredness is important to this case, and not that she's mentioning it here. We should be listening and believing her. Mm-hmm. But she just cuddled up on my knee, and we read a story. And we also had some treats. This is a portrayal of a really good mom. Okay, now I'm asking the viewers to enter into not reality, but the verbalized perception of reality. She's telling you, my memory is really strong for a reason. I believe her. Madeline was really tired, and there's a reason why that's here too. And I'm a really good mom. She has a need to tell us this while her child is missing. Okay? This is often an indication of neglect or abuse. There's a correlation between mothers who, when they go for substance abuse treatment, if a mother says in the in-screening of substance abuse treatment, I'm a really great mom, or portrays it in any way, shape, or form, it's a signal for the therapist to go into the history and find this mother has been involved with Child Protective Services. Okay. In other words, great moms are often too tired to talk about how great they are, just from being tired. It's the need to brag is concerning. Now, her child is missing. At this point, the self-condemnation should be through the roof instead of the boasting. This is not a good sign. I'm believing her as she's guiding me until she talks me out of it. I think they may have read. I think they may have had some treats. In fact, she's given me exact details of the treats because I think she really is vivid memory because the hormones are really high, which is concerning. And then what I mentioned earlier about the normal factor, here we go. The usual kind. In other words, it's a normal, usual night. Mm-hmm. The need for her to express that tells us it was anything but. It was anything but. Now, the mentioning of toilet, teeth is unnecessary. There's any number of things that you do with a child, but she chooses to include these things. These associations in language are often associated with sexual abuse.
Right. And I've heard you say that before, Peter, or read that. That seems quite sort of, I don't understand why that might be the case.
Sure, and it does warrant an explanation. I was once investigating a robbery, and the employees were asked to write out a statement of what they had done. And one woman wrote, I woke up, brushed my teeth, got dressed, and went to work. And she included the brushing of her teeth. And in statement analysis, we believe what someone tells us. I believe she brushed her teeth. I also know that when people include brushing of teeth in a statement, it's very rare. It's important to her. It's something that we all do, and 90% plus people don't feel necessary to tell us they brush their teeth. So why would brushing teeth be so important to her? So I spoke to the owner of the business and said, I would like to speak to this young woman about the theft. I said, no, she didn't steal, but I believe she's a victim of domestic violence and she knows who did. And the owners were shocked. How could you possibly known that? We had met with her. She is in a domestically violent relationship. We talked about it. We've been trying to get her out of it, but she won't listen to us. How did you know? I said, because she brushed her teeth. And they thought that was just crazy. I said, no. What we do is we flag personal hygiene, and we ask you to consider what her life is like. Women that are involved in domestically violent relationships are generally not subject to violence. It is the threat of violence that controls them. So in her world, when she gets up in the morning, she goes into the bathroom, She locks the door, and for a few minutes, she feels safe while she's brushing her teeth and tending to herself. Because the rest of her life is controlled by him. He might text her at work, he might call her at work, he might control things. And what I think happened there was that she allowed him and his gang to enter access into the building to commit the theft. Brushing the teeth was something so important to her that she mentioned it. So whenever we see personal hygiene, where it is unnecessary, we explore for these matters. Now, the idea of sexual abuse comes in with water. School teacher notices that little Johnny comes to school every day and he's always clean, but before every snack or after every snack, we got to get him to wash his hands. Like all little children, that's just kind of a norm. One day, Johnny comes to school and he washes his hands without being asked and washes them again and washes them again and washes them again. And the teacher says, uh-oh, something's wrong. There's a dramatic change in his behavior and has to do with water. Okay. What they have to explore for is the possibility of sexual abuse. When a child is sexually abused very early on, in the bedroom by a trusted family member, the child's sensory is different. And someone may be 40 years old and say, when I went to the store, I opened the door and went in. You can't go to the store without opening a door. Why would he mention door? Because in his brain, there is an association with the sound of an opening door that's with him forever. Because the opening of a door sound may be associated with when he was sexually abused or she was sexually abused. So we believe what someone tells us. I believe that, they had this personal hygiene with every 3-year-old goes through it. But her inclusion is telling me something's wrong. Remember the context also. Her child's missing. She hasn't mentioned a thing about what Madeline's going through, but she's talking about Madeline's hygiene here with detail. So I believe what she's telling me in that sense, but I know there's a reason why she's choosing these words. Then when she says the usual kind, what she's telling you is something unusual happened between her and Madeline that night.
Right.
Now, I asked them to consider that. Now, go back and listen to her words. My memory of that evening is really vivid. I mean, she was really tired. And I think that investigators should consider the possibility that Madeline was given something that made her very tired so she would sleep and not disrupt the dinner. That is not uncommon. In fact, this is somewhat sad to report. I once had to investigate a physician who was accused of drugging children. And he spoke plainly to me and said, I give them cough syrup because their parents are abusive. The state cannot take the children away from the parents, but I know they're abusive. And by giving them a teaspoon of a type of cough syrup that will help them sleep, the parents' drug night will not be interrupted and the child won't suffer even more so. It was a dreadful decision that he made, and he didn't practice medicine very long after that, as you can probably imagine, but it's something much more common than people would believe. We have not only that, but we have a doctor here who had access to that sort of thing.
An anesthetist as well, she was. She was an anesthetist as well.
I didn't realize that.
Right.
Many examples of how this works out. When someone is accused of sexually molesting a child and the man says, I'm a normal, happily married man. What he's saying is, I don't deny the sexual molestation, but I want you to think I couldn't have done it because I'm married. We're married people, still sexually abuse children. So when the word normal is used, it's an indication, and any word near that, normal, usual, regular, when it is used, it means the person is thinking of something unusual, abnormal, not the norm, while they're speaking, and they're trying to deceive. So here she's revealing a knowledge, if we're listening to her, that this day was what they went through, that routine was not normal. I also, before we leave this last quote, she just cuddled on my knee and we read a story and we also had some treats. The word we is used to connect people. It's a very powerful pronoun. It often speaks of unity. And we do not hear the word we between a murderer and a victim. It's very unusual. What this suggests, along with the word cuddled, is something different. The word cuddled, that's what 3-year-olds do. It's unnecessary to tell us that. It is persuasive language. She's trying to portray something as being very close, very normal, telling us that something wasn't normal about it. But the word we suggests something to consider, that what happened to Madeline that night may not have been intentional. And so I am a slave to the statement. The words must guide me, and no matter what my opinion may be, what I do now is I have indication within the language that there is no concern for Madeline, which we'll explore, that Madeline is not alive at this point, and that they are concealing information about what happened to Madeline. But thus far, this is not premeditated. Mm-hmm. This is someone who had a boundary set up in the family, and the ties that bind them together here produce the word we.
Mm-hmm. When you say that night, right? The night that something happened, if it happened, mm-hmm. Are you convinced that it's the night that they said, or do you think it could have been a different night, a previous night?
Oh, it could be the previous night. This could
or previous, not necessarily the date they've said.
Yeah, that's a very good point, because usual is given. Usual is given. What she could be talking about is patterns. Mm-hmm. Speaking of patterns, if this child was given something to make her sleep, it wouldn't have been the first time. Mm-hmm. And that's what that could suggest.
Mm-hmm. If you've watched my final film, a lot of people think that they spent 3 days or so before they announced to the public that Madeline had gone missing, that they spent some time planning it. That's a well, it's all covered in my final film, basically. But what we looked at was, we went back in time from the point where they alerted the police to try and find evidence of her being alive in photographs and all kinds of things. So there is a school of thought that she died on the 29th of April, which was 3 days before they even reported her missing. I don't know. Have you not watched that final film?
I haven't yet.
Right. Okay. All right.
Right now, it's not supported by the language, but the reason I mention it is because what I do is I have to be open to anything that comes in. And what I'll say is the language will affirm that, the language will deny that, or the language won't address it. It's called a temporal lacunae, a jump over in time. And at this point, I don't see a deliberate attempt to jump time.
Okay.
And if it comes up later, I'll grab it, but I don't see it at this point.
All right.
At 9 p.m, Jerry checked on Madeline and the twins.
I actually stuck my head round the door and I just lingered for a few seconds and thought how beautiful she was. And that's the last time I saw her.
This is very concerning. This is a statement that bothers me a great deal. First of all, he begins with the pronoun I, which means psychologically he's putting himself there. This is good. We want him to be there. We want to have reliable information. But the next word is actually. The word actually means he's comparing what he's claiming to do with something else. Why would that be necessary at this point? Then I'd actually stuck my head around the door, and I just lingered for a few seconds and thought how beautiful she was, and that was the last time I saw her. At this point, his child is missing, not dead, according to their narrative. Even though he's referencing a specific night, is Madeline no longer beautiful? And what I asked of you is to consider that when you give a detail of a past tense event, the details should be in the past tense appropriately. When you speak about character or ongoing characteristics of a missing child, it should be present tense. And I thought, how beautiful she is. And that's the last time I saw her. That would be more acceptable. This is a past tense reference to Madeline herself, not specifically bound up to a detail, but actually, was she only beautiful that night? That's what I mean by an attribute. So when someone uses an attribute of a missing child in the past tense, it's not a good signal. It's not a good signal at all. Now, he also stuttered with the pronoun I. So what we look for is that, does he normally stutter? And he doesn't. He's not a stutterer. The pronoun I is something that we in the English language use millions of times. We are as good at using the pronoun I as we could be as good at anything in this life. When someone stutters on the pronoun I, there is an increase in tension and anxiety. And this stutter bothers me here. And it's important. He's talking about his daughter in the context she's still missing. So while the several things are wrong, he gives a narrative or an emotion. He references her beauty, which should be ongoing, and it's not. And he stutters on the pronoun I. And I still wait to hear concern for what Madeline is going through while this interview is being conducted. And that's going to be a bigger point as we move forward.
Yeah.
Excuse me. The last time someone sees a missing child is always going to be important.
Right.
This may sound a bit strange, but I believe him. I believe that the last time he saw her, he did linger. And he did think about how beautiful she was. I think this is where she was disposed of. And I'll build this theme as we go along.
All right.
The last time you saw her, you thought how lucky you were.
Exactly.
And that bothered me because that's very poor interviewing. That's why we train journalists to not teach someone how to lie. Because the problem with that is he did not think about how lucky he was unless something was wrong. And that's, I can't say that he thought how lucky I was. He only affirms it from what the interviewer said. The interviewer should not have said such a thing. The interviewer is speaking as if the interviewer believes the child is dead. If you have no guilty knowledge of your missing child and you leave the child to go to dinner, you're not going to have that type of nostalgic thoughts. You're just going to dinner and, we'll miss her, we'll be back in shortly and everything will be fine. You don't have those type of thoughts. Having those type of thoughts is an indication of guilty knowledge that Madeline's gone.
Your world shattered within an hour.
We now have a period of time, and we also have a case of distancing language where he didn't say, my world is shattered. If my daughter was missing, my world is shattered. Not your world, not someone else's world, not everyone's world, because everyone experiences this universally. My world is shattered. I'm the father. What's going on with Madeline right now? No concern. What I'm building towards is this. There's a reason why the McCanns do not show any concern over what Madeline's experiencing right now. They're intelligent people. They're no dummies here. They're intelligent people. They're not concerned. Parents are forever concerned because even Stephen King said, the terrors that a parent's mind can conjure up in wondering what my children are going through is more horrible than anything he could write. Our imaginations double down on us when we try to sleep, worrying about every little slip, every little fall of our children go through. They have shown no concern in the most extreme of circumstances. Why not? And they're going to answer that question for me. So Jerry, as a biological father, is telling us that his world isn't shattered. Your world is. That's distancing language.
At 10 p.m, it was Kate's turn to look in on the kids.
At that point, I expect to hear, I got there and Madeline was gone. That's, it's not a discovery. It is a traumatic, personal, up close, personal, extreme event that puts hormone levels so high that if they don't recede quickly, there's going to be PTSD. In other words, the hormonal response of finding your child missing is going to be so extreme that in a few moments, you're not going to be able to reason the emotions down, the hormones down. If you're driving your car, and as you're driving, someone cuts you off, and you grab your wheel, and you can feel the flush of hormones. You feel it physically. It's a physiological reaction. You say to yourself, I'm okay, and your hands begin to loosen. The blood goes back towards the blood flow that initially went out to protect you, and the hormones recede in just a few moments, maybe a second or two, even less than a second. If that hormonal response were to stay elevated for more than a few seconds, it is very likely that 30 years from now, you're going to wake up screaming because the brain has an imprint on it. If you walk through the door and found your child missing, the hormonal response is so extreme and there's no reasoning it down, that parent will suffer for the rest of the parent's life, even if the child is found safely a week later. 30 years later, the parent will still wake up screaming because the imprint on the brain, the inability for the brain to process the most powerful of human emotions, mother-child bonding, it can't happen properly. And so we can mitigate it by trying to get them to process it. Journaling is very helpful, but it is so intense. And that's why the vividness is so powerful, and it's physiological. When you're under attack, when something like that happens, your pupils will dilate, you go on high alert, blood will flow to and from certain parts of your body, your legs will become stronger so you can run. The blood goes away from the internal organs so that if you're knifed, you have a better chance of surviving. The hairs, people say the hair on the back of my neck stood up. It's actually true. Piloerection, it's called. It is some kind of built-in mechanism to make us look bigger and stronger. Those are the type of reactions that you will have if you find, or I will have, if I find my child being missing. She tells us I had that type of reaction with the conclusion that everything was normal. You can't have it both ways. This is a disconnect that means she's not speaking from experiential memory. She's using certain points of the account, stitching it together in an overall deceptive account.
The bedroom door where the 3 children were sleeping was open much further than we'd left it. I went to close it to about here, and then as I got to here, it suddenly slammed. And then as I opened it, it was then that I just thought, I'll just look at the children. And literally as I went back in, the curtains of the bedroom, which were drawn, were closed. It was like a gust of wind, kind of just blew them open.
This is not a sophisticated liar. This is a silly story where my child is missing and I'm talking about the curtains and blowing and all sorts of emotions. That's where someone who is a police officer, even without terrific training, will say, this is storytelling. This is storytelling. Well, we call it narrative building, and what she's doing is she's giving the inclusion of emotions, besides many other indicators of problems within the house, including the door. The bedroom door where the three children, not my kids, that's distancing language there, were sleeping, was open much further than I'd left it. That's not what she says. We left it. Does that mean that she and her husband each took a hand and moved the door to a certain level together? Because that's what she wants me to believe. She's lying. This is deception. The fact that she's using door for deception is because she's building a narrative about a kidnapping. The need to build a narrative about kidnapping says the child wasn't kidnapped. That plainly. And literally, as I went back in, the curtains of the bedroom, which were drawn, were closed, it was like a gust of wind blew upon them. She's asking you to enter into an emotional, fictitious account. This is the writing of fiction. This is something that even Statement Analysis 101 would be able to grab on.
Mm-hmm.
So I conclude here, deception indicated from this alone.
And you mentioned here again, doors and windows are often found within language of sexual abuse.
Yeah, I'm concerned.
Right.
I'm concerned. This is not a normal family. There are verbal indicators, and it doesn't necessarily mean that Madeline was a victim of sexual abuse. What it could be is in the language of Kate that she was sexually abused while she was growing up. This would leave her vulnerable for things such as neglect. And if you take that the next step, someone that has been sexually abused in childhood who is now vulnerable to neglecting her own children, possibly even failure to protect, if someone else like her husband was involved in sexual abuse, we would find the need to persuade us, I'm a great mom. We were cuddling. Okay? The reason I indicated deception with that statement about cuddling is because whenever someone says, we call it the I love you factor. I kissed my kids, told them I love them, and went to bed. Everyone kisses their kids and says, I love you, go to bed. When you see that in a criminal statement, they're telling you something is really wrong between me and the kids. So her need to persuade about the cuddling, if you consider it carefully, you must be open to the fact that she may have been holding a lifeless body and has a need to persuade, no, this was cuddling.
Okay.
This answer, by the way, was one of the most important answers because here we were able to look at the larger measurement of the statement of what happened as she gets into it. And this is a very lengthy introduction. She's not getting to the point of telling us that Madeline is missing and what must she be going through. She is narrative building of even if we just measured it with the scientific measurement of our formula of 25% introduction, 50% content, 25% afterwards, she is heavily delaying getting to the point and giving lots of unnecessary details. Where do we have more detail? On what Madeline is going through or on the windows?
And the curtains, which had been closed, just swung open into the room and revealed that the shutter was all the way up and the window being pushed right across. And then I just knew she'd been taken.
Right. She goes to a conclusion of the matter and she goes into present tense language. This is an intelligent woman. She knows how to use verb tenses. When someone is committed to something that happened, I came to the building, not I come to the building. Well, here we have a continued description about the curtains, which is concerning to me, just swung open into the room and reveal that the shutter was all the way up. So if we want to believe what she's going to say is that the reason that she knows that someone had been taken her is because she walked into the room and the room just did magically opened itself up and said, look at the evidence. She's lying.
Okay.
This tells us
where did all the nonsense go? Where did all the nonsense go? Where did all the nonsense go? In 1984.
Looking on the World Wide Web. Looking on the World Wide Web. Looking on the World Wide Web. Waiting to open our crystal. Looking on the World Wide Web. Looking on the World Wide Web. Looking on the World Wide Web. Waiting to open up this Looking on the World Wide Web. Looking on the World Wide Web. Looking on the World Wide Web. Waiting to open up its
Where did all the nonsense go? Where did all the nonsense go? Where did all the nonsense go? In 1984.
Looking on the World Wide Web. Looking on the World Wide Web. Looking on the World Wide Web. Waiting to open up its
Where did all the nonsense go? Where did all the nonsense go? Where did all the nonsense go? In 1984.
Looking on the World Wide Web. Looking on the World Wide Web. Looking on the World Wide Web. Waiting to open up its door.
Where did all the nonsense go? Where did all the nonsense go? Where did all the nonsense go? In 1984.
Looking on the World Wide Web. Looking on the World Wide Web. Looking on the World Wide Web. Waiting to
nonsense go? Where did all the nonsense go? Where did all the nonsense go? In 1984.
Looking on the World Wide Web. Looking on the World Wide Web. Looking on the World Wide Web. Waiting to open our kids' door.
Where did all the nonsense go? Where did all the nonsense go? Where did all the nonsense go? In 1984.
Looking on the World